The highest form of fear is not the panic you feel when your life is in danger. It is not the trembling knees before a speech, or the pounding chest when love is on the line. No, the deepest fear, the kind most of us spend our entire lives running from, is this: to let go. Think about it. Everything you've been taught says the opposite. If you want success, work harder. If you want love, hold on tighter. If you want safety, build walls, save money, plan everything, and control everyone. The world praises the striver, the grasper, the one who takes charge. And yet, here's the paradox. The more you let go, the more life gives back to you. That sounds impossible, even reckless, doesn't it? Almost like a dangerous gamble, to release your grip when everything inside screams, "Hold on." But this isn't a trick of philosophy. It is the oldest truth written into the fabric of nature itself. Stand at the edge of the ocean for a moment. Watch the waves roll in. Each arrives with power, only to collapse and retreat. And still, the tide is never lost. The sea does not hoard its strength. It spends itself endlessly, generously. And because of that, it never runs dry. Or look at autumn leaves. They do not cling to branches in desperation when their season is over. They surrender to the wind, swirling, drifting, carpeting the earth. And in that falling, in that apparent death, the soil is nourished, the tree rests, and spring is prepared. The leaf's letting go is not loss. It is the hidden beginning of life again. So here is the riddle we face. If nature thrives by release, why do we suffer by clinging? If the river flows effortlessly to the sea, why do we strain to push against the current of our lives? The question is not trivial. It cuts to the very heart of how we live. Because underneath our careers, our relationships, our striving, and our endless worries lies this hidden assumption. If I don't hold it together, everything will collapse. But is that true? Or is it the very gripping itself that exhausts us? What happens, really, when we stop gripping so tightly? Once, a farmer hired a helper to sort potatoes. The job was simple enough: 3 baskets, large, medium, and small. The helper just had to place each potato in the right pile. At first, he worked cheerfully, but as the hours passed, his face tightened, his hands slowed. By evening, he dropped the last potato, sighed deeply, and quit on the spot. The farmer was shocked. "Why are you leaving? The work isn't heavy." The helper replied, "It's not the lifting that exhausts me. It's the deciding. All day long, this pile or that. This one big enough or too small. My mind is fried. I cannot do it anymore." This little story reveals something we rarely admit. What drains us most in life is not the physical load, but the endless burden of control. You've felt it, haven't you? You wake up already tired, not because you've run a marathon, but because your mind has been racing through decisions since dawn. Should I take that job? Did I say the wrong thing in that meeting? How do I keep this relationship from slipping? What if I lose everything I've worked for? Decision after decision, grip after grip. Like the helper with his potatoes, you are not crushed by weight, but by the exhausting demand to manage, predict, and control every outcome. And the irony, the more you try to hold every piece in place, the less alive you feel. Anxiety creeps in. Sleep disappears. Joy evaporates. You might even notice how hard it becomes to be present with people you love because your mind is somewhere else, sorting potatoes that don't matter. Contrast that with the moments when you've accidentally let go. Maybe you were caught in a sudden rainstorm with no umbrella, and after fighting it for a few minutes, you gave up, only to find yourself laughing, drenched, strangely free. Or maybe you released control in a conversation, stopped trying to be right, and for the first time, you actually listened. Those moments taste different. They carry a lightness, a sense of flow, almost as if life was waiting for you to drop the heavy basket and finally notice it had been moving on its own the whole time. The helper's story is ours. We collapse not because life is too much, but because we have not yet learned the art of letting some potatoes fall where they may. The story of the helper and his potatoes is not really about farming. It is about us, about the invisible weight of control we carry every single day. We live under the illusion that if we can just tighten our grip, if we can anticipate every problem, plan every step, and manage every outcome, then somehow life will finally relax. Yet the opposite happens. The more we clutch, the more tense we become. Why? Because control is a mirage. Life is not a machine to be engineered. It is a river. And no matter how hard you try, you cannot push a river forward. The water finds its own way, around stones, over roots, sometimes still, sometimes raging, sometimes gentle. And yet, without forcing a thing, it always arrives at the sea. What exhausts us is not the river's current, but our insistence on swimming upstream. Think about it. How many sleepless nights have been wasted rehearsing conversations that never happened? How many years have been lost waiting for life to finally obey our plans? We call this responsibility or ambition, but beneath it often lies a quiet panic, the fear that if we don't hold on, everything will collapse. But nature whispers a different lesson. The leaves fall without asking permission. The seasons change without our approval. Even your own body, the beating of your heart, the rhythm of your breath, happens without your command. Nature itself pries your fingers open and shows you the illusion of control. And here lies the paradox. Real courage is not the ability to dominate, but the willingness to trust. Not blind passivity, but a deeper cooperation with the rhythm already moving through everything. When we stop gripping so tightly, a strange thing happens. The exhaustion lifts, energy returns. What we thought we had to force begins to unfold on its own. Relationships breathe again. Work flows with more creativity. Even challenges seem less threatening because we are no longer fighting them. We are learning to move with them. So perhaps the highest form of fear, the fear of letting go, is also the doorway to the highest form of freedom. There are really only two ways to live. Path one is the path of control. Here, life feels like a monarchy. One ruler, the ego, sits on the throne, issuing orders, demanding obedience, and punishing anything that does not go according to plan. You spend your days strategizing, defending, correcting, and commanding. On the surface, it looks powerful, but beneath, it breeds fear. Why? Because a king who rules alone must also carry every burden alone. One misstep, one rebellion, one storm, and the whole kingdom trembles. When we walk this path Anxiety becomes our companion. Burnout becomes inevitable. And worst of all, we become separated from others, from nature, even from ourselves, because everything and everyone is treated as something to control. Path 2 is the path of trust. This path looks more like a forest than a monarchy. No single tree dominates. Instead, countless roots weave together beneath the soil, feeding one another. Fallen leaves become nourishment for the next generation. Shade, rain, and wind are shared. It is not perfect order, but it is a living harmony. To live this way is not to abandon responsibility. It is to shift from domination to cooperation. You begin to notice unexpected help arriving at just the right time. A friend offers advice. A stranger holds the door. A problem that seemed impossible finds its own solution after a night's rest. Life, when trusted, begins to reveal its quiet intelligence. This does not mean life will always be easy. Storms still come. Trees still fall. But in the forest, even destruction becomes part of renewal. Shared power nourishes all things without dominating anything. Think of your own life. Which path are you walking? Do you grip so tightly that every mistake feels like a catastrophe, every change like a personal attack? Or do you allow for the possibility that life knows something you don't? Most of us switch between both paths without realizing it. We cling to control when afraid, then taste the sweetness of trust when forced to let go. But imagine what would happen if trust were no longer the accident, but the choice. One path shrinks life into a burden, carried by one set of shoulders. The other opens life into a shared rhythm, lighter, freer, more alive. If letting go feels like the highest form of fear, then what lies beyond that fear? The answer is unsettling, but also liberating. I don't know. We've been taught to treat not knowing as weakness. In school, the wrong answer is punished. In work, uncertainty is seen as incompetence. In relationships, we cling to labels and promises because admitting "I don't know" feels like betrayal. But what if not knowing is not failure, but freedom? Consider this. Light cannot shine on itself. A blade cannot cut itself. The eye cannot see itself. There are limits built into existence, mysteries that can never be solved by effort. And yet, we treat those mysteries as threats, instead of invitations. The truth is, the deepest joys of life always come wrapped in uncertainty. Falling in love means stepping into, "I don't know." Will they stay? Will they change me? Creating art begins with, "I don't know." What will emerge from the blank page? Even being alive is a kind of cosmic, "I don't know." Why are we here at all? The courage to say, "I don't know," is the courage to stay open, to be surprised, to let life speak in a voice not scripted by our fears. Think of a conversation where you stopped trying to prove yourself and simply admitted, "I'm not sure." Notice how the air softens, how connection deepens. Suddenly, it is no longer a battle of egos, but a meeting of souls. What I really want is tied to what you want. And what you want? I don't know. Surprise me. Mystery is not the enemy of meaning. Mystery is the soil of meaning. Just as darkness makes the stars visible, uncertainty makes wonder possible. If we already knew every outcome, life would be mechanical, sterile, and dead. So the question is not whether you can conquer the unknown. You can't. The question is whether you can live inside it with grace, to see "I don't know" not as a cage, but as a door. And when you step through that door, something remarkable happens. The fear of letting go begins to transform into curiosity. Instead of asking, "What if I fail?" you begin to ask, "What might life show me next?" That shift is not small. It is the very heart of courage. We began with a paradox. The more you let go, the more life gives back. At first, it sounded impossible, even reckless. But now, perhaps you see why it is true. Think back to the ocean. The tide does not cling to its waves. It releases them. And because it does, the sea remains eternal. Think of the trees. Leaves fall, seasons shift, branches break. And yet, because of this very letting go, the forest thrives. Decay is not the enemy. Impermanence is not a threat. They are allies, hidden partners in the rhythm of life. What we call endings are simply beginnings in disguise. What feels like loss is often the soil of renewal. And so it is with you. Every moment of clinging drains your spirit. Every act of control isolates you from the living flow. But each time you open your hands, even trembling, even afraid, you discover that life was holding you all along. Courage, then, is not the iron will to dominate. It is the quiet strength to trust, to admit, "I don't know," and step forward anyway. To love without guarantee, to act without certainty, to surrender not as defeat, but as a deeper cooperation with a universe far wiser than our plans. Yes, it is frightening to loosen your grip. It feels like stepping off solid ground. But notice what happens when you do. The ground rises to meet you. Life reveals resources you didn't know you had. Friends appear. Solutions surface. The very energy you wasted on fear is returned to you as vitality, creativity, and peace. So here is the invitation. Stop treating impermanence as an enemy. Let endings teach you renewal. Let uncertainty teach you wonder. Let fear teach you courage. The paradox now becomes clear. To gain life, you must release it. To be free, you must let go. So let the river carry you. Trust the tide. What is yours will arrive in its own season, and you will be ready, not because you forced it, but because you learned how to open your hands.